The moment the church doors trembled and a ripple of shock ran through the crowd, time seemed to split in two. Sunlight spilled across white flowers and polished wood, and right there at the altar a single father's life teetered on the edge of a promise he wasn't sure he deserved. Just as he lifted his eyes to the future he had fought so hard to build, a figure moved with quiet authority through the aisle, a presence so unexpected it felt unreal. A billionaire, known to the world for headlines and steel nerves, reached out and pulled him away from his own wedding, and in that breathless pause before anyone could understand why, everything the man believed about fate, forgiveness, and second chances was about to be rewritten. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that life can change in a heartbeat, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Ethan Carter had learned to live with his shoulders tight and his heart guarded. Years earlier, when his wife passed away after a sudden illness, the world had gone quiet in a way that felt cruel and permanent. He became both mother and father to his daughter Lily overnight, a man measuring time in school lunches and bedtime stories instead of dreams. Money was always tight, sleep even tighter, and grief sat like a shadow in every room they entered. Yet through the exhaustion, Ethan kept a promise to himself that Lily would grow up feeling safe, loved, and never alone. He worked long hours repairing old houses no one else wanted, came home smelling of dust and sweat, and still found the strength to kneel on the floor and help with homework or listen to her fears about thunderstorms. Life didn't get easier, but it grew steadier, and that steadiness eventually opened a small door to hope. That hope took the shape of Grace Miller, a woman who met Ethan not through some grand romance, but through ordinary kindness. She was a teacher at Lily's school, patient and warm, the kind of person who noticed when a child's shoes were worn thin or when a father looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Grace never tried to replace anyone, she simply showed up, again and again, with consistency and care. Over time, Lily's laughter returned, and Ethan felt a cautious warmth in his chest he thought he'd lost forever. When he finally proposed, it wasn't flashy or dramatic, just a quiet promise whispered during a walk at sunset, and Grace said yes with tears in her eyes because she understood the weight of what that yes meant. The wedding day arrived wrapped in nervous joy. The small church was filled with friends, neighbors, and a handful of people who had watched Ethan struggle and survive. Lily wore a simple dress and a proud smile, standing taller than she ever had. Ethan felt like his heart might burst as he looked at the life he'd rebuilt from fragments. Yet beneath the happiness, there was a tremor of doubt he couldn't shake, a feeling that his past was a locked door he'd never opened fully. Years ago, before he was a father, before responsibility sharpened him, Ethan had made a mistake that haunted him in quiet moments. He had walked away from a job opportunity that could have changed everything, leaving behind a project unfinished, a promise broken, and a powerful man deeply disappointed. That man was Victor Hale. Victor Hale was known across industries as a self-made billionaire, a man who turned risk into empire and never forgot a debt, good or bad. Years earlier, when Ethan was young and desperate to provide for his growing family, he had been recruited into one of Victor's early ventures. Ethan had talent, ideas that could save money and improve efficiency, but when his wife fell ill and life collapsed around him, he disappeared without explanation. Victor's company suffered losses, and Victor never forgot the name attached to the missing piece. Ethan believed that chapter was buried, that life had moved on, and that the world was too big for their paths to cross again. So when Victor Hale stepped into the church that day, his presence was like a sudden storm. The murmurs spread quickly, confusion mixing with awe. No one understood why someone of his status would be there, let alone approach the altar. Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach as Victor's eyes found him, sharp and searching, filled with something unreadable. Without raising his voice, without creating a scene, Victor reached out and guided Ethan a few steps away from Grace, from Lily, from the life he was about to claim. The room held its breath, and Ethan's mind raced with fear, guilt, and a desperate hope that whatever was coming wouldn't destroy everything he loved. In those few seconds, memories flooded Ethan's thoughts. Nights in hospitals, unpaid bills, Lily asleep on his chest, Grace's steady smile, the promise he was making not just to her but to himself. He expected anger, punishment, or humiliation. Instead, what followed stunned him. 5 seconds later, Victor did something no one expected. He placed a hand over Ethan's heart, feeling it pound like a trapped bird, and then turned to face the room, his expression softened by something that looked a lot like respect. Victor had done his homework. He knew about Lily, about the years Ethan spent holding his family together with sheer will. He had followed Ethan's quiet acts of kindness in the community, the homes repaired for families who couldn't afford it, the weekends spent coaching kids for free because no one else would. Victor realized that the man who disappeared years ago hadn't been careless or weak, he had been drowning. And in that realization, Victor saw something rare, a man who chose love over ambition, responsibility over recognition, and never asked for praise. The reason Victor pulled Ethan away wasn't to stop the wedding, but to finish what had been left undone. Victor had come to make amends of his own, to acknowledge that he had never asked why Ethan vanished, never considered that life could break even the strongest people. In a gesture that left the room silent and trembling with emotion, Victor announced his support for Ethan's future, not as an employer or a boss, but as someone who believed in redemption. He pledged to fund a foundation in Ethan's name, one that would help single parents learn trades, find work, and rebuild their lives with dignity. The unfinished project from years ago would finally come to life, shaped by the compassion Ethan had earned through hardship. Ethan felt his knees weaken as the weight he'd carried for years lifted. The shame he thought would follow him forever dissolved into something like peace. Grace watched with tears streaming down her face, understanding that this moment wasn't stealing her groom, but giving him back to himself. Lily's small hand clutched her dress as she smiled, sensing that something beautiful and important was happening, even if she didn't fully understand it yet. The ceremony resumed, but it was transformed. Every word felt heavier, richer, filled with meaning. Ethan stood taller, not because his life was suddenly perfect, but because it was finally whole. He wasn't just marrying Grace, he was closing a wound that had never healed. He was showing Lily that mistakes don't define you forever, and that kindness has a way of circling back when you least expect it. In the weeks that followed, the story spread quietly, not through tabloids, but through lives changed. Single parents found opportunity, communities found hope, and Ethan found purpose beyond survival. Victor Hale, once known only for his wealth, became known for his humility, for understanding that true legacy isn't built in towers of glass, but in people given a second chance. Grace continued teaching, Lily continued growing, and their home filled with laughter that felt earned, not borrowed. If this story is touching something inside you right now, if it's reminding you that no chapter is ever truly closed and that grace can arrive at the most unexpected moment, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach hearts that need them. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel, because your words matter more than you know. On a quiet evening, long after the wedding flowers had faded, Ethan watched Lily fall asleep with a book on her chest and Grace's hand in his. He understood then that life doesn't always reward you immediately for doing the right thing, but it remembers. And sometimes, just when you think your past will steal your future, 5 seconds is all it takes for everything to change.